Stage 8, Anawana Lake, 2.3 miles. And for reference, we are attempting to stream this.
Okay.
10:31.
Good morning.
3. What's up, guys?
Not too much. How about yourself?
31. Barely made get the stage open on time. So
Don't
a
get
little
you.
bit tight, but okay. 10:31 for car 3.
Excellent. Thank you. Go ahead.
I forgot to button up again. I'll try and do it with my gloves on.
Need me to steer?
No. And my check engine light just came on. It's going to get cold in here, if you don't mind.
I do, but there's not much I can do about it.
So what am I looking at?
50 right 6 cut, left 6 plus, over crest 120,
50.
left 4 camber.
50 right 6 cut.
Hey! Thank you. Bank's working.
Thank you.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Armed. Okay. So 50, right 6 cut, left 6 plus, over crest 120, left 4 camber. 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! Right 6 cut, left 6 plus, over crest 120, left 4 camber, into right 5 plus 150, right 6, 50, small crest 100,
Next.
turn left 3 plus, camber 50, left 3 plus, camber 50, flat crest 70, left 6 plus, over flat small crest 70, small crest 100, right 4 plus cut. Left 5 very long 100, flat long small crest 70, stay right over flat crest 100, stay left over flat crest kinks 150, stay left over flat crest 300, chicane left entry. Go, go, go! Go, go, go! $120, turn to right 2 plus, no cut, go. Left 6 plus, go into flat small crest 400. Left 5 minus over small crest, go 50. And a stay right over flat crest 300. Repeat, left 5 minus over small crest, go 50. Way too early. Stay right over flat crest 300. Small jump 50. Finish 150. Go, go, go. Did you lift at the end there?
No.
Okay. Just making sure. Ugh. These finishes are tight.